Here we are once again, this time from Japan, Suzuka International Racing Course, outside, a couple hours outside of Osaka, Japan. And we are back for some more Friday GT3 action. Currently on board with Joe McCauley's Lamborghini Huracan GT3, running some practice laps here in the rain, as it is a little damp here out on the track today. The question being, will it be raining on the Sunday session? I feel like that is the question we've been asking ourselves all through this Friday GT3 Championship. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to RCI TV. My name is Mike Jones, and we are currently watching the Blame Mike Jones, Joe McCauley team here at the Suzuka circuit. Joining me today, of course, will be Stewie behind the cameras, and Jesse Lee. I may have been gone for a couple weeks, but I am back, and I would have no one alongside me other than yourself.
Well, thank you, Mike Jones, and hello to our broadcaster, Stewie, as well, and very much as well, everybody at home. Welcome into the GT3 World Championship here on RCI TV. And it is good to have you back, Mike. I missed you. Ryan Mawson is an excellent replacement, but I will say he doesn't shout nearly as much as you do. So it is going to be a return to form.
We do, Jesse?
Yeah, fair enough. It is going to be a return to form for the Friday Championship here in round 7 of 8. And, of course, the weather playing a big factor. And for the very first time, folks at home, you may be interested to know it was actually supposed to rain today. So it was scheduled to do this. All the other races, we promise you, it was a very, very low chance. This time, I'm told by race admin Tom Bryant, this is what was supposed to happen. It would have, however, been a bit more funny had it not rained, just to spite Tom.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Jesse Lee, even though Tom is running the servers, I do have to admit that I'm the one who set up all of the weather for the Friday Championship.
Plot thickens.
Yeah, so I did indeed plan on Suzuka trying to rain here. I think that this is a very interesting circuit in general. This is one of my favorite circuits to drive. Oddly enough, it didn't used to be, which I feel like is very common throughout GT3 drivers, but after the RLM 12 Hours of Suzuka that we did, of course, about it, what it's been 15, 16 months ago or so, none of my team could connect into the server at the time, and so I drove about 7.5 hours by myself, and after that, decided I'd love the track. And I've never had a chance here at Suzuka to watch a race in the rain, so I was like, you know what? We're going to see about some rain. And I'm sure Fabian Piffet, of all people, is not going to complain in his Lexus. However, Malinowski in a Porsche dominating the practice sessions for. He's 7/10 up, Jesse Lee.
Yeah, it's those mixed conditions, Mike. That Porsche does so well in the mixed conditions here, but just in general. If it gets too wet, the pace will fall off of the Porsche GT3 cars. But in the mixed here, it is an absolute playground for a Porsche and a Lexus, too, for that matter. George Boothby, after last week's outing, also mentioned that his McLaren doesn't do well at all in full wet, and it's okay in the dry, but in the mix, it is a pretty stout machine. And George Boothby, who is looking to pretty much guarantee championship victory here today in the final round a week from now, will be loving these conditions. He finished fourth in the wet and then the drying conditions at Alton Park. So if it stays like this all race with damps, it might end up playing into those three drivers' hands. I tell you what is a bit surprising. It isn't surprising considering it's Joe McCauley, but how good McCauley has been in the wet in that Lambo all season is very surprising. Not for him so much, but that car.
Yeah, I mean the Lambo has definitely been doing better, right? Since they over at Kunas, changed a little bit of the grip for the mid-engine cars in the wet. It's been about 4 or 5 months or so that BOP update kind of hit. The Lambo's been doing better, but it's still just not it's not the easiest car to drive, period, and it's definitely not the easiest car to drive in the wet. So Joe, I mean, he's obviously realistically Joe when he's on. He is one of the best drivers that I would say that we have here in general. He's just a very quick and very consistent driver. He's just had such bad luck throughout the championship, and a couple small mistakes by himself, granted, still happening, but for the most part, just a lot of bad luck through the last couple Friday championships. And he's still here trucking along. I mean, around 7-8, he's still here. He's up and fourth in the qualifying session, Jesse, as you said, and realistically, only a couple tenths off the pivot. But Boothby, if we're going to talk about McCauley and his skills, we got to talk about George Boothby. George Boothby has dominated in every single set of conditions that we have thrown at him in the past 2 months here, just about, for the Friday Championship. I don't know how we're going to stop him. I mean, what's going to happen next season? Who is going to fight George Boothby?
Well, George Boothby taking on the world. For those of you that may have not been with us last season, he was fighting for the Friday GT Championship, and late season dramas kept him from winning that championship after a great fight with Jardier. And, it was right here where it all went down a season ago after all of that. And despite doing everything right near the end, Boothby came up short. And, ever since, he has been on the warpath. And I think even though that was many, many months ago at this point, it's still fresh in his mind of how he feels that he got a bit robbed, and how he feels that maybe things should have been a bit differently or went a bit differently for him and his team. Well, he has certainly made up for it and put an exclamation point on it. And today could be the day, as we'll look at points after qualifying, the day that he puts a pretty bow on a championship well done. I have a bit of a derailing conversation question here. Something that I haven't noticed up until just today. How long have we been streaming in 1440p?
Stewie? You want to answer that one? He's been streaming for about a month or so, give or take, in 1440p. He's been testing a bit of the bit rates, the bit rate changes on OBS to see like what works out and stuff. And he's really found that spot. And on top of that, he's obviously got a capture card set up with his two PCs going on as well. So he even gets that little bit of extra quality on top of it. So that's why throwing him in here for the Friday Championship is always fantastic, because we always get that crisp quality streaming. Not that the 1080p that Ryan and Nick and I throw out and everything is not good, but it's not 1440p.
Well, I can tell you, we are live here today. For those of you that have capable monitors and television sets, RCI TV live in Ultra HD apparently. And I can tell you on my monitor, absolutely crisp, Stewie. Fantastic stuff. Well, qualifying is green, 15 minutes, all pros here today, looking to duke it out and set the quickest time. Will anybody be able to even hold a candle to Malinowski, the man they call Tortellini and the man that I call Torts? Well, if practice is anything to go by, which it usually isn't, Mike, it doesn't look like it, but well, practice one thing, qualifying is another. Land Rush coming out of the pit lane. It is a rather long circuit. You cannot waste time, and you cannot invalidate or mess up your lap here.
No, 15 minutes, 2 minutes a lap. You've got enough time that if you invalidate one lap, it's not going to be that big of a deal. If you have to go back to the pits once, you're going to be okay. If you screw it up a couple times, you're done. That said, what we don't see here in the qualifying session, Jesse Lee, is any moisture. Clouds still very ominous up there, but track is in fast conditions as we tick over to the Sunday session. That means that the first race at the moment, at least, the first 15 minutes or so, will be in the dry. And of course, we have 2 races here today. This is our one race of the championship. That we'll have 2 races, 2 40-minute races, in fact, and they will be about 3 hours apart in sim time. So we might see those weather changes come across for the second race. Martin Grady here, of course, one of the shakeout stars, honestly, of this championship. He's been doing so well and had so much fun throughout this championship. That it's just been fantastic to watch. He's in P4 in the championship as well, after really just kind of grinding through most of the season. And now, of course, race number 7, he's going to be the first one to take the hot lap of the qualifying session down into the first curve, looking for the little line there, just touch of the brakes as you get into the first curve, and then hard back on the brakes as you come in through second curve and out to the S curves. And this is just one of those spots where you're feathering the throttle, on the throttle really hard, and then you're off, then you're on it, and then you're off, then you're on it, and then you're off. And it's just such about that precision, because if you miss an apex here through the S curves, you will lose about a half a second, more or less. And then, of course, that turn right there coming out, Dunlop, is such a key corner to make sure that you nail and get that run out into the Dagners, which is he's coming through now. There's Dagner 1, here's Dagner 2, and then back of the throttle nice and early for the run up to the hairpin. And you're looking for the little curb to end on your right. Hard on the brakes. Get down to first gear so you can touch that apex. Just come around the hairpin. Don't get on the throttle too early or you will lose traction. That is a little dip coming out of that hairpin that can really throw your car out through 200R and into one of the more interesting corners, I think, in GT3 racing. Spoon curve. Looking for the curb on the right. Touch of the brakes down to third gear and just kind of coast your way through the double apex, the long double apex corner, and then get on the throttle as early as possible so you can get out onto the west straight, all the way over to the left, and then all the way to the right as you approach 130R. This is where we see so many people lose it, either invalidating, catching the curb and throwing their car off, or what have you. The 130R is probably the most dangerous corner on the track, and I'm sure that we will see multiple people go off there. We saw Joe McCauley go off quite a few times in the Friday Championship last time, out through the Casio Triangle, and he will come across the line. The first lap to be set, Martin Grady coming across a 1:59.6, not a bad lap. I don't expect that to be pole time by any means. I'm expecting low 59s here from these guys as the session picks up. But Boothby, 3/10 back off the first lap, so not a bad little run for Grady to start off with. And perhaps these fast track conditions versus the normal optimum track conditions that these guys are used to might play a factor here, but that Bentley doing well.
That Bentley doing well, but a lot of people, some 8 cars that I've counted now, invalidating their opening lap. So that is effectively 2 minutes of wasted time. Cody Pride comes across the line in 4th, Boothby 2nd, Malinowski 3rd. Cody Pride resetting. Mark Vart, the top 5, gets bumped by Vanbrugh in the number 19. But yes, about 8 cars invalidating their opening lap, and it turns out it was a very good lap by Martin Grady there, at least to set the bar early. Certainly Grady will be looking to improve upon that. What does Mikael Sundstrom have for nearly on pace? I suspect this will be somewhere inside the top 5. What do we have? Of course, we don't use the F1 line here. We use the GT line. There it is.
Top 5.
Oh, it definitely is top 5. Exactly at a 2-minute 1:09.5. Certainly not quite up to the pace that Sundstrom wants, but a decent lap. Of course, that is your first goal. Get a time up on the board. Jordan Sohn's coming around in his Audi, the Peepo Clown Esports Audi, trying to get a time here on the board and validated the first time through. Actually, this actually might be his first lap now that I think about it. I think he exited the pit lane incredibly late. So what will this get him to initially? Up to 7th place, a 2-minute time there. Martin Grady coming back around for the second lap. Do we see an improvement? We do indeed. 59.547, about half of a tenth quicker. George Boothby goes quicker, a 59.874. The time's coming in again. Fabian Piffet improves all the way up to second with a 59.7.
It's Joe McCauley I have my eye on right now, though, Jesse. He's 4/10 up and flirting higher as he's coming across just out of Spoon down to 130R. He's about losing just a touch of time. Mikael Sundstrom out behind him doing pretty well, though. Here's Pierre Geiner going to come across the line. Has not set a time yet in his Bentley. He's about 2 seconds back off the leader. Joe McCauley, Mikael Sundstrom should be approaching the line here pretty shortly. And we're going to see what happens. Vanbrugh throws himself up in a P7 in the meantime, splitting McCauley and Sundstrom. But here comes Joe out of the final corner. He picked up quite a bit coming out of the Casio Triangle. This is going to be a P2 lap as long as it's valid, and it is. A half a tenth, and he's pulling over very quickly. Wants to get some new boots on that car so he can go back out one more time. Mikael Sundstrom going to come across the line. This is also looking like a podium spot for him, probably P3 if I had to guess, and it is. So he's promoted himself P5 on that first lap that he came across, Jesse Lee, as you said, and now up to P3. And these guys are the only ones that are getting near Grady at the moment. The 26 DPI Porsche just coming across the line for his first timed lap into P15. All the way back up to P13 is where we're finding the second mark off the leader. And these times are going to continue to improve as the session goes on. 7 minutes to go. Grady is about a tenth and a half up on his lap as well. So Jesse, I mean, what is it here? Why is Grady doing, not that he's been slow by any means, right, ever through this championship, but Grady is doing very, very, very well. I've just noticed, by the way, before you answer that, Boothby coming across the line. Ooh, so close. He lost just a touch of time, I think, coming out of the triangle, but does promote himself up into P2. So what is it with Grady, Jesse? Why Suzuka?
I don't know. Well, they call him the king of plebs or the king of the plebs. And I think that's just like Tidgney. I think that's a loving phrase that his fans call him, or perhaps he calls himself a pleb, but he certainly doesn't drive like one. He's got a great mind for racing, and it's just something about this track is agreeing with him as Pierre Geiner does go to 14th there with a 2-minute.498. And here's Cody Pride, who's just inside the top 10 looking to improve. But to expand upon Grady, I just think that he has found his footing in this championship. He's got his car where he likes it, and the setup seems to agree with him most of the time. And we could be seeing something fantastic from Cody Pride. Could this potentially be a pole-stealing lap for the 33? Yes, it will be. A 59.313 for Cody Pride. The Pride Tribe raise up. Your boy on provisional pole finally beats Grady in the 4:18 with 5 minutes to play.
Yeah, I think you're right, Jesse Tidgney. I mean, he really has found his footing here. I think you're right in this. You know, I mean, obviously this was his first proper championship inside of Assetto Corsa Competizione here in the Friday series, and you know, he's very good driver. And I think that, you know, over the first 4 or 5 races or so, you know, he's now stepped into the fact and okay, now I've got a handle on it, and that's probably what it is. I think you're right on that. And it's great to see that. And hopefully he'll be back next season and can potentially fight for, the top end of the championship. Not that he's not already. He's in P4 after just some very consistent races throughout. But, hopefully we'll see him back in September for our Friday Endurance Championship with a partner. That he'll be able to get a good showing in on that. Malinowski, after the practice session being so quick, doesn't look like he's quite as quick in the pure dry conditions. As you said, Jesse, the Porsche does very well in those very mixed conditions, that damp conditions. But we did, however, interestingly enough, just have the track tick up to optimum grip. That's going to change everything here in the next 3.5 minutes. We're going to see these times fall probably another couple tenths through the remainder of this session. Everybody is on track. There's nobody in the pit lane. Malinowski with a pretty decent lap, his first decent lap of the session, picks himself up about 4/10, puts himself up into P3, demotes Boothby to P4, and Joe McCauley out to the third row of the grid. Here's Sones. He's going to come across the line here pretty soon with his Audi, currently in P12, not too far up, only about 0.05 of a second. Going to come across the line and drop a lap, but this is the lap for you at the moment. That's a good one by Piffet, though. P2, what a run from the Lexus here in the dry. And Massoud, actually, Jesse Lee, wow, 58.890. I wasn't expecting that, but with the optimum grip, well, we're down into the 58s. Massoud says, hello, gentlemen, I am here, and I have put my Porsche on the front row here at Suzuka. Y'all, what are you going to do? You got 2 more laps.
Well, Massoud, who spent the better part of this qualifying session without setting a valid lap, comes back with a vengeance of 58.890, the mark to beat, and by some margin over 0.4 of a second to the good. But everybody I expect now to pick up. Folks at home, let me explain. Everyone here, based on practice, based on what they were told, was expecting a wet affair, and it was in practice. Well, the rain has subsided for qualifying. The track went from dry to fast and now to optimum. You're going to be seeing the quickest times. What does Romain Thomas have to get themselves up higher onto the board? And it will be into the top 10, a 59.796, as everybody here I'm expecting to improve by some margin. What can Fabian Piffet do? Getting the big suck up the straightaway, the West Straight, trying to gain as much time as you can. Do not get loose in 130R behind someone. Doesn't happen on this occasion. And what will this do for the time? As gaining all of the time, coming into the triangle and into the final couple of corners, I can tell you Massoud will take no further part in this session and has come to pit lane. The other 18 cars are still out on track. Piffet in third right now. What does the time improve to? It's good enough for second, 0.2 off the overall pace. But what about Boothby, Mike?
I know he's 0.4 up at the moment. That might promote him if he can keep this run up into P2. Let's see. He's going to come across the line here in about 3, 2, 1. Boothby across the line. It is not quite enough. He's still just over 0.5 behind Piffet, but does find himself at least back up into the second row. Joe McCauley, he's got a hell of a run going at the moment. 0.4 up on his lap at the moment as he's running down the West Straight to 130R, losing just that touch of time down the straight. Didn't get quite as good of a run as he did on his best lap at the moment. Comes across 130R, good run through there, hard on the brakes into the Casio triangle, all the way down to first or second gear, depending on which car you're in. Try and take as much of the curb as possible on the gas. Very, very early is Joe McCauley, and you can tell by his delta, 0.5 up now. This is going to put him just ahead of Boothby, if I'm doing my math right, and it will put him just ahead of Boothby, about 0.5 ahead. Boothby going to be demoted, but not a full row, just to P4. Romain Thomas currently in P11. He's 1/10 up on his time, and 1/10 is still quite a bit of positions in the end at this. That's his final lap. The time just expires. He's not going to get time for a new one, but puts himself in P9. I don't think he's going to stay there, though, as Soans is flirting with the time as well out behind him. Pierre Geiner as well back in P17. He's about a half a second up on his lap at the moment, looking very strong as he's trying desperately put a lap in that will put him a little bit farther up in the field. Of course, Jesse Lee, we only have one qualifying session for 2 races. That means that whatever finish you have here in qualifying is going to be your start for the race on both sessions. Massoud looks like he's pretty much locked in that P1, but then again, as I'm glancing down the qualifying order here, I'm seeing Cody Pride. He actually just lost a little bit of time, but Cody Pride was on for a P1, and he's just had to abandon his lap, it looks like, unfortunately. But Martin Grady isn't done.
Martin Grady, who led the early parts of this qualifying session, has one more shot at it coming to the line, and so does Mikael Sundstrom, who will come to the line first, nearly on pace. How far will this get them up to the grid? 6th place of 59.358 is where they will start, unless this man, Tidgney team, Martin Grady, the king of the plebs, can he get back up to the front row or perhaps even take the pole position? He's going to have to find a little bit more than half of a second. Coming through the triangle, hitting the curbs with authority, the run down the corner into the front straightaway, and as close to the wall as you like. And let's see, what is it going to be? How far up will he be? It's going to be second for Martin Grady.
A fantastic run by Grady, throws himself up into P2 at the final second right before we go over to the grid. That's going to put him in the excellent position of getting the upset on our championship points leader, George Boothby, for the Suzuka races. Massoud, though, is looking like the one to beat, at least for the qualifying. We do have a dry start to the race, obviously, Jesse Lee, and at least another dry 30 minutes. But let's take a look at these points. So Boothby almost 100 points up, just shy of 100 points ahead of Fabian Piffet. Realistically, as long as Boothby just doesn't do badly here today, championship locked in. He doesn't even need to show up next week. It's Boothby. He's going to show up anyway. We know he's going to come do 75 minutes of Spa. It's George Boothby. He wants to be here to race. But Fabian Piffet, Malinowski, and Grady, now that's a points race there, Jesse.
Yeah, very close indeed between all of them. 255 down to Martin Grady's 215. Very doable indeed here in 3 races time because of the doubleheader today. And even further back from that, Juan Zimis in their own fight for a top 5, finishing the championship with the likes of Bouquet, Vanbrugh, Jardier not here today, but Mikael Sundstrom as well. And don't count out Cody Pride in the 33 as well as we know Cody can race and drive. That is all for the top 5, or for a top 5 spot, perhaps. And of course, the battle for the podium positions not done and dusted yet.
Yeah, I think Pride and Sunshine are going to be the ones that are going to pick up a lot of positions here today, as there are some signouts up ahead of them in the points. Here's Massoud, by the way, P11, our pole sitter, back in P11 for the championship so far. He's going to pick up quite a bit of positions as well, as we've just seen like quite a few signouts for the back half of the championship. Of course, Colette, Parker, Dornella, Steele Vasson, none of these guys here today. And pretty much the rest of the points grid is not here. We do have Matthias Wass here. Romain Thomas is here. But Mark Vart, Leone, both not here today either. And there's a couple cars back here towards the back that are looking to pick up a few positions because of the signouts. Of course, Geiner, as we're seeing there in P23, he's got 60 points, and he's going to do plenty of gaining through the remainder. Jordan Soens, who's had to miss a couple races through the championship. And, of course, Joe McCauley there in P25. Just as we talked about earlier, a little bit of a struggle by him through the first part of the championship, and he's looking like it's looking like he's going to do okay, I think, for the most part, for this race. Hopefully we won't have a repeat of what happened at the last Suzuka race. And here is just the back half of the grid. We'll go ahead and scroll through these and just catch most of the sign outs and get back to the grid time. About 2 minutes left on until the formation lap will start. And we will see these cars off for their first 40-minute session. Of course, Massoud going to lead them through the formation lap and subsequently have the inside line for the first corner. And that is really where you need to be at Suzuka, Jesse. There's a lot of tracks that, sometimes having the P2 is the beneficial line. We talked when me and you, because we've done this multiple times, commentate on a Hungaroring race. P2 is actually the beneficial spot to be in for the opening lap. Barcelona is another one of those that a lot of drivers like, that outside line going into the first corner. But Suzuka is not one of those, and it's going to be difficult to catch Massoud off the line, I think.
I'm going to go ahead and disagree with you on that. I think you had it right the first time. Being on the outside here is a Willy Wonka golden ticket most of the time. And I think Martin Grady knows that a little bit, especially if the track is dry. And you might see that here. The very weirdly named turn 1, which is actually 2 turns, in my opinion. It's a double apex. It allows you to get that run.
If I'm not mistaken, it's called first and second curve, or it used to be.
I've only ever heard it be called one turn, but I tend to agree that it's 2 different turns, because you stop turning, and then we could get into a philosophical debate on what a turn is, but in my mind, a turn is something that you end up straightening out the steering before you turn again. That's what a straight is, and you actually do that in between turns 1 and 2 before you get to the S's. So that's my argument. Please put yours in chat. I'd love to hear what you have to say as we continue the grid walk through the back of the field. Well, what you got is what you got. I know a lot of these teams were expecting rain. They probably will still get it at some point, but it will not be here for the start of this one. And certainly with the pro drivers, they come prepared with a wet and a dry setup. And it's going to be a very interesting day for all of them as they set off on the parade lap. You got to pay attention to the very, very yellow Bentley on the outside of Massoud here for the initial start. Will he get the whole shot off the line and be able to go around the outside? If you can hold it through the first turn, you will have an advantage going up the S's, at least initially. And well, if you are Massoud, it hasn't quite been the season that you were looking for, but today could change everything. Everyone continuing their lap here. A little bit of a spirited lap. You have to get a move on around here. It is not the shortest track in the world. And it also is a very technical one at that. 19 cars will take the green flag. The way it works out today, 2 40-minute races with points awarded at the finish of both. So an 8-round championship, technically, well, not technically, it just sort of does have 9 rounds worth of points. And how difficult is it going to be? One qualifying session and starting from the back in both races. Well, you can say you can feel out how race 1 is and make corrections for race 2. Race 1 always in these cases seems to be the more scrappy of the two.
Yeah, we see a lot of that in the Thursday Championship, don't we, Jesse? With the GT4 races. The first race, this season they're doing the 20-minute, 40-minute races, granted, but, it's always more scrappy for the first race, definitely. And so I'm really curious to see, how these guys do in the Friday Championship, being that there's 19 of them on the field, and they're 2 40-minute races, because obviously I'm participating in the Monday European Championship, and the first and fifth races are 2 X40s. And the first race honestly wasn't too bad in comparison to race 2. I feel like it was a little bit more scrappy on race 2 at Imola, but these guys have been racing with each other for 6 races now. I think they're just going to be scrappy both races.
Yeah, you're right. They've raced each other long enough to be angry at each other. Certainly some drivers Drivers will be drivers. They have had some words with one another in the chats after some of the races, very politely, mind you, because we don't allow it to go too far here at RCI. But a lot of questions of what were you thinking, man, have occurred over the season. Benji asked really quickly before we go green, based on my logic, is Spoon 2 different corners? Well, if you completely straighten up your steering and accelerate, the answer to that is yes. Spoon is 2 turns. But I don't actually know if you completely straighten up. I think that might be one continuous turn.
Not really. I don't think so.
Well, Mike Jones, it is race 7 in the championship, and Massoud has a lot of cars behind him, and Grady beside. Let's see how this is going to shake out.
Well, we're going to find out here in just a couple seconds. The lights are red. You can see on the camera they're approaching the timing line. Green here in just a few seconds for race 7 of the Friday GT3 World Cup, and the lights are green. Here we go. Massoud getting a little bit of a run. Look at Joe McCauley jumping right in the middle of those guys. He's in the middle of Piffet, and Grady backs out just a little bit, realizes he doesn't want to push 3 wide into the first curve, but he does stay alongside Grady as Massoud gets the jump. And there he goes, Boothby now on the inside of Grady as he comes out of the corner, not able to quite get it straightened out in time to get out in front of Grady at all. Sundstrom is scrapping there in the back. I think that's him and Giner. A couple of the Bentleys there in the mid-pack just going nuts with each other through the S curves. They finally sorted it out before they get out the jump. There's a little bit of a contact. Sones right behind him. Dorsch is getting into contact ever so slightly with the car ahead, and now we're watching the Porsche. And if we can bring up the timing screen again, please, so we can see what's going on with the cars. Thank you. Dornell is now in. That's P16, so that's Colot out ahead of him that he came in contact with. The Porsche is sliding all through the Dagners as these guys are trying to get their tires warm. It is only 19C ambient, 25C out on the track, so it will take a lap or two to get these tires fully up to temperature. Massoud, Piffet, McCauley, Jesse Lee up in P3. A fantastic start by him. Grady and Boothby drop back.
Yeah, perhaps a great start for Piffet and McCauley, but an absolute terrible start for that outside line. And Martin Grady, he had people going around him like McCauley. I don't know exactly what happened. Maybe a little bit cautious on the start. Maybe didn't get it all at the line. But one thing is certain is that Grady fell back several positions and got taken advantage of. I believe McCauley was the one behind him, and he was able to swing out from behind Grady and get by him. So not the best start for the 418, but we've seen that before, and it isn't the biggest deal. And look at that, Malinowski going big style into the triangle, and it's going to be heavy contact between Boothby and Malinowski, and that continued through the entire triangle. They're both going the right way, but it looks like Boothby's going to win that, and here comes Cody Pride. Cody Pride said, room for one more. Absolutely.
Yeah, there was a little bit of contact between the Bentleys in the background as well. Vanbrugh and they're all sorts out of shape as Pride. Oh, that was Pride there, losing the traction. I don't think he touched him. Did he touch him?
He absolutely touched him.
Didn't catch on the replay screen. My apologies. So Vanbrugh now getting into contact with Pride there. Shuffling Pride back now all the way to P9. Mikhail Sundstrom promotes himself up one. And that's what I was trying to say is the 2 Bentleys were getting into contact coming out of the Casio Triangle as well. So Sundstrom and Vanbrugh already having contact even before that all happened, while the Boothby Malinowski Cody Pride fight was going on. Now watching from the rear wing of Vanbrugh back to Sundstrom, and he's going to get a little bit of a move. Look at this. Sundstrom is trying to go, and Boothby is well off into the second Degner, and we're going to see if we have a replay of that. Let's see what happens. Yeah, he just gets sideways. Just gets sideways. That Degner can be dangerous, especially in these rear engine and mid-engine cars. Indeed. It will throw you off, and Boothby is the victim of that, and that's the problem that Boothby is going to have, Jesse Lee, is that he just needs to have a good finish. He doesn't need to have an amazing one. He needs to have a good one. And now he's all the way back to P18, shuffled back to the back of the field on lap 2 of race 1 here at Suzuka. Pride is not going to be able, I don't think, to get anywhere in the slipstream of the Bentley out ahead. Not in that little Porsche down the West Straight. He's going to try for it, but I don't think it's going to happen here. The Porsche just doesn't have the top end, even against that big, bad Bentley. little bit of the run in 130R. He's going to try and go around the outside into the Casio triangle. Let's see what happens here. He's going to get it. Is he? Is he? That's the question. Can he keep the traction on the inside? It's so difficult to keep traction on the outside of that or the inside of that left-hander coming out of the triangle. And now he's got no slipstream to speak of. The Bentley, they're going to push three wide into first curve. That is Pride, Vanbrugh, and Giner all side by side. The Bentley's coming into contact. One of the Bentleys goes off, rejoins the track safely. Pride gets promoted up in front, and the two Bentleys are going to cycle out just behind again. Vanbrugh is the winner of the Bentley fight after getting pushed off the track, but they just lost so much time that is the train of Mark Vart being led up behind them.
Well, with all that being said, because undoubtedly so in the next 5 to 10 minutes, it's going to become very important as Giner's going side by side with Mark Vart into Dunlop and down into the Degners. Oh, contact there. You don't want to be there. That's going to send Mark Vart off, and that's going to lose him several spots. But like I was going to say, as it will become very important here in just a few moments, of course, the Friday Championship is live stewarded. The live stewarding staff is on hand and certainly now has an absolute mess on their hands. In fact, if I look just a little bit across the way here, I can see papers flying. So they are very much hard at work, and they've had a couple of easier weeks, Mike Jones, I will admit, and this is not going to be one of them. Going back to George Boothby and that self-induced spin off the curb into the first Degner. Well, like you said, all he needs to do is have a decent run. Well, 18th is not a decent run, and it couldn't have come in a worse race. The shortest race all year, 40 minutes, and that's not going to help his chances. The last thing he needs to do is go into the final round as Was going completely off the track in 130R.
I think he got tapped. I think he got tapped by Rob.
Three wide to the triangle. George Boothby, the ultimate opportunist, getting a place back there, having to do it the hard way now is George Boothby. But like I was saying, the last thing Boothby wants to have to do is go into round 8 of this championship next week and have to actually do anything to win the championship. He wants to lock it up today. It hasn't come off here early, but unfortunately, he has only 33 minutes to get back up there. But, well, if anybody was going to be able to climb that mountain, it would be George Boothby. And penalties already coming in.
Yeah, penalties already coming in. While you were talking about Boothby, Jake Boswell came in, and usually he looked confused for a second, Jesse, because he's like, wait a minute. I'm supposed to hand Jesse this paper, but I reached for it as you were talking, and we do have a penalty from Vanbrugh. He got in contact with the 33 early, and we're going to. Ooh, now Solens is way off. I think is that in the first curve?
No, that's in the hairpin.
No, no,
you're right.
No, that's in the S curves.
Yeah, that's in the S's. So that's
almost a weird
certainly
spot.
was contact.
Yeah, that is not the spot that you lose traction there. So Soan's demoted all the way down to the bottom of the grid, and he's going to have a bit of a recovery drive here, same as Boothby, except even a little bit worse. He's now about 6 seconds off the back of Waz, who is the 222 ahead of him in P18. But sorry, to get back to the penalty really quick, the 19 came in contact with the 33 early on. I believe we're going to try to catch a replay of that. A little bit of an aggressive move there from the 19, basically. And I don't think that was the actual incident there with it. But, either way, a 5-second penalty for just a very aggressive overtake. But 5 seconds, if we're making counts here, that's about 6-7 positions. So, in the end, that is quite a bit. This is the replay of earlier where the Porsche got all out of shape in the second curve.
That was the one.
Yep, and that is the one right there. That is lap 2, turn... Jake Boswell called it turn 3, but that would be turn 1 and 2, depending on if we want to call that 1 or 2 turns.
I was going to say, basically, it can be 1, 2, or 3 turns, depending on who's calling it. Look at this. Pulling out now is going to be Thomas and getting the position, at least for the moment. What an absolute slingshot job into turn 1.
Can we see that again, Stewie?
It makes it stick on Giner. I can't believe he
Let's
pulled
watch the
that
dash
off.
cam. Can you go to the dash cam here? Look at this. Man just sends it and sticks it to the bottom of the track, Jesse Lee.
Where did he find that traction?
I don't know. That was amazing. I think move of the race. That was fantastic, Thomas. That was a good one. If you're watching this back.
Thank you, Stewie, for bringing us that replay quickly and on the fly like that. But having it confirmed by some of Martin Grady's fans and viewers can confirm he was in the wrong gear on the initial start.
Yeah, well, that's definitely what cost him, but in the end, it didn't cost him too much. Again, he's in P4 still. He's about 2 seconds ahead of Malinowski, give or take, depending on where they're at in the lap. He is a little bit behind McCauley, though, as well. So McCauley is, stepping slightly away from him, but Grady's got 30 minutes. And Joe McCauley, well, he's in a Lamborghini, and we know that Lamborghini will destroy your tires. And Joe has not had the best luck here at Suzuka as well. So I'm hopeful that Joe can hold on to it. I really want to see him have a good finish here today. The man deserves it, if anything, and I'm really hoping he does. But Grady has just shown so much strength through the championship, as we were talking about, and I would really like to see him up on the podium as well. That said, Massoud hasn't necessarily stepped away from Pithit either, Jesse. Only a second and a half up, and Joe McCauley as well is in the fight with Pithit. It's just kind of that decision of, will Joe and Pithit fight and let Massoud check out, or throughout the race here, is the Lexus going to be able to catch up to that Porsche? 30 minutes ago, we just crossed the 10-minute mark. There's only about 25% of this race done, Jesse. I feel like I've just ran a marathon.
Yeah, it was definitely a spirited start. There was a lot going on there, and I don't think we're done with the slips of paper from head steward Jake the Bosmeister Boswell either. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be more of that to come. And there's also going to be more great racing. I don't know what it is about Suzuka, as we see Boothby trying to get by William Dorsch here for the Collot, for the 13th place position. And I don't know what it is about this place. It is one of the longer tracks in ACC, but it also usually has some of the closest qualifying of any track and some of the closest racing. And the fact that you actually can race here and go 2 wide and 3 wide, as we've seen in this race, is a testament to how great Suzuka is. And, well, this is the in-car cam of George Boothby, who had that self-inflicted spin on lap 2 and is now making their way back up through the field. A top 10 here would do wonders for the damage control in today's race. Mind you, he has 96 points to the good thereabout in the championship coming in. Only has to have a decent day here to lock up the championship. Well, it hasn't panned out that way, but still 28 minutes to go to get that done. Well, Pierre Geiner is under attack from Mark Fart, and once again has to back off in 130R. And the battle continues behind, but look at this, a big move back there. Is that Collot on Dorsch? I think it is, avoiding action being taken by Dorsch, and they're going to end up losing that position. And now George Boothby is trying to get around. Look at this dive move.
Yeah, it goes for the absolute send down in the triangle. Then Boothby just capitalizes on it, on that contact. The car ahead does get himself out, but the Bentley going to lose out to oh, and he's off. As we come back to live pictures, he is off. Call it. We're not sure what happened to him yet. Stewie, I'm sure, is trying to dig for a replay. Here we go. Let's find out. So that's the Bentley out behind. Did he get tapped? Kind of. He had to check up. He had to check up. Boothby looked like he slowed down a little bit more than both the guys behind expected, and that cost, call it, all the marbles today and got, sent into the marbles. And he's going to lose quite a bit of positions. He's dropping down the order, down in P18 at the moment. Comes out ahead of Sones, barely. Never mind. Nope, he's out behind Sones as well, about 2.5 seconds. So unfortunate for him. Also, something I've noticed yesterday, I'm just going back on the replay machine to take a look. You'll notice Martin Grady, he's in P number 6. So something has happened to him. I'm seeing it right here, actually. He got loose coming out of 130R. Reasonable contact into the wall, and it just cost him a couple positions. So he's going to have, I wouldn't say heavy damage, but that's definitely a fair amount of damage he's going to have on the left side of that Bentley, and we're going to see what that costs him through the next 25 minutes. Hopefully, he'll be able to keep that thing steady. He is still pretty close to Cody Pride. He's only a couple seconds back. We're going to see how much that's going to cost him over the next 20.
Well, Jake Boswell has been back, the head steward of the race, and as we're going to see, the recovery from the 130R incident. Well, while we're talking about the 41, we'll go back to an incident with Malinowski in the 992 and the 41 on the first lap at the end of the lap. 5-second penalty for car 992 for dive bombing the 41. And folks at home, Jake did not seem very pleased. And here is said, that was said dive bomb, or the end of it rather.
Yeah, it looked like he just knocked him a little bit. It didn't cost Boothby too much, but, Tom Bryant did decide that was going to be the penalty for Malinowski for the dive bomb, is at 5 seconds. And, of course, Boswell's got to lay down the law, the head steward. And that was
indeed.
the decision made. Here's William Dorsch, RT93 Esport 193 Aston Martin. We've seen him a couple times on screen as he's been competing with the Bentleys around him, but he is currently back behind Mark Bart, and he's got a George Boothby breathing down his tailpipe. And I took a look over at Boothby just a moment ago, by the way, Jesse Lee. I don't think I have ever seen a man look more serious in his life, unless he was driving the 24 hours at Kyalami. He looks like he's like on a mission.
We talking about Boothby?
I am.
Yeah, George is a fun guy, and he loves his racing. But the look of determination when something goes wrong, he focuses in. He's like an anime character almost, where he goes into this super focus mode and goes Super Saiyan. So while the car is not flaming or glowing any particular color yet, but he is definitely making up positions. And he's doing it in a calm manner. He's actually been able to capitalize on some mistakes in front of him as well and get some of those positions. But here is Julian Vanbrugh, and what manner of things has happened to Julian Vanbrugh here? I'm going to assume
130R things. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, one wouldn't need to be psychic to figure that out. Completely sideways, and what a save. We call that sawing at the wheel here in the U.S., and you can see why. He could cut logs with that. Going around the outside is Romain Thomas. Oh, no, and in the background was that Geiner. It is Pierre Geiner off into one.
Markvar, let's see what happens. Does Markvar give him a tap on the back end? No, he just gets loose. He comes in a little bit hot into first curve, and that will throw you around. Keeps it off the wall, though. Doesn't lose too much time, but that costs him enough. And there is Thomas, by the way, as we come back to live pictures. Thomas has made his way around Vanbrugh through the S-curve at some point. So +1 for him. That is the second time that we have seen, because Thomas, he was the one, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't he the one that launched it in the first curve a few laps ago? It was.
It was.
And so now we've seen this man make 2 overtakes where you shouldn't be making overtakes. Because you can't pass in the S
driver. Yeah, well. you can. You just got to be really brave and really lucky. But the Valkyrie Esports driver absolutely getting it done here. Count it, up to 8th place. And he wanted to get by Vanbrugh anyway, because Vanbrugh has that 5-second penalty for the maneuver on the initial start of the race. So that's sort of what you want. Cody Pride up inside the top 5 now after Grady's sort of almost, we'll call it a slide into 130R. So Cody Pride inside the top 5. Massoud now with a 2.5-second lead over Fabian Piffet. Joe McCauley has been on the bumper of that Lexus for second place for the past 20 minutes and must be doing it very patiently. You know who isn't patient? These two right here getting into one another.
And Boothby capitalizing again.
Yeah, Boothby. Yeah, Dorsch right there causing all sorts of dramas, and off into the pit lane is a car there. Look at this. Look at Dorsch going for it.
just absolutely sends it and comes into contact. That's Vanbrugh, by the way, who came into the pit lane. He has decided to retire his car. Not sure if maybe he had some damage and that was what was costing him or what. I'm sure we'll find out. He was the one who got that one of the 5-second penalties a little bit earlier. So Vanbrugh retiring the car here at Suzuka. Not going to be the finish that he wanted to have when he started the day. And here is the look at the fight up at the top of the grid. Piffett and Joe McCauley up here, as Jesse says, it was nose to tail. And we are still watching that. And that's Massoud right there ahead as well. So realistically, not too far up. A slight mistake by Massoud from the H3 Racing Porsche number 100. And the 195 and the 18 could be all over the back of them as well. Piffett doing good, holding off McCauley so far. And I really think that is just the nature of the Lexus here at Suzuka. The Lexus and most your front engine cars here at Suzuka can really eat the curbs a little bit better than some of the mid and rear engine cars, and so you can really throw down the defense in some key spots like through the triangle and outside of 130R here. And I think that might be why Joe is having a bit of a struggle getting past him. But that said, for most of these guys, Jesse Lee, this is a bit of a practice race, as they've got 10 hours of this to run tomorrow, even after the next 60 minutes of racing, if we count the next 40 race as well. So 10 hours of Suzuka tomorrow for our World Tour Championship finale. And this is just a bit of a practice racing against each other, seeing what they're going to do. Boothby all over the curb at 130R. He's going for the look underneath that 193 at Dorsch. Isn't quite going to get it done this time. He knows he can't get into contact, because if he does, he loses the penalty. That's going to be 5 to 15 seconds, give or take, depending on what it is. And if you look at the timing screen, I mean, these guys, there's only 10 seconds between him and the last place at this point. So he can't afford a penalty.
Exactly. That is the case in point, and I think you're going to see more of those, I'm afraid, before this race is over. Well, it's a Friday night on RCI TV when the Boothbys and the Prides are in the chat. Very warm welcome and hello to all of you. George Boothby's father confirming that he is basically an anime character, and I've just learned that Boothby's due to be a father in December, so mazel tov.
Oh, really? That's interesting. I did not know that. So congratulations to you, Mr. Boothby. Hopefully, I was going to say hopefully he'll make the endurance championship, but in September he may not.
Yeah, I was going to say he's going to be very busy. I just realized that's going to make Mr. Boothby a grandfather.
Oh man.
So that's going to be very interesting indeed.
I just want to point out, Dr. Gluck, that Jesse Lee was the one who said that, and he lives at 17357 North Carolina. Anyway. So Sohan's gone the recovery drive here, Jesse.
Yeah, you sure? You have to excuse me. That was really good. You got me with that one. Jordan Sohan's on the recovery drive, of course, went way off into the dirt. We suspect he may have gotten help in the S's, but no matter. Still coming back through the field. Additional penalties. Yeah, Malinowski up into the fourth place, caught all the way back up to McCauley. He has that 5-second penalty, and if he wants this to count, he is going to have to shake a leg. You may have noticed that the number 7 had a 5-second penalty. That's from minor contact with the 24 that caused the 24 to lose multiple positions. That was turn 10, lap 3. A warning given to the 19 car for an aggressive overtake with position returned as well. And
there it is through Dunlop.
Yeah, we saw that live. That's just the replay confirming. But yeah, that's exactly what the 5 seconds was for. And I'm still sad to say, I don't think that's the last time we're going to get visited by Jake Boswell in this particular race. But back to what you were saying, Mike, yeah, if you've had a particularly rough race, this is a practice for you. You'll know exactly what you need to do for race 2. These are pros. They will figure it out one way or another, and there's no replacement for an actual live race, so they will have a better understanding. And I can guarantee you Martin Grady will not start off in the wrong gear next time.
Definitely not. I'm sure that his chat has been all over him for the past 25 minutes or so.
Pleb something.
Yep.
Tidge, pleb.
Yep.
pleb start, etc. and so forth.
Pretty much. that is pretty much what I'm sure the chat has looked like. But yeah, I'm sure that he's gonna have a better race next time. Of course, making that mistake. Well, I don't even necessarily want to call it a mistake because 130R just sometimes does 130R things. But you know, the slight spin and contact with the wall that he had has obviously costed him enough that, you know, he's now continuing to drop back and is currently under fire from Mikael Sundstrom. I mean, he's running, you know, mid 2s at this point, where the rest of the guys are running, you know, high 59s to low 2s. And so, you know, it's definitely cost him just enough that it's you know, now a bit of a struggle to not lose the positions. Of course, you know, hey, we got another 40 minutes. You'll have a brand new, you know, brand new fixed car and everything. It's not like you have to carry the broken car over to race 2. So he's got plenty of time to make that up. We're going to see Malinowski try to peek on the inside of Joe McCauley as they come through second curve, but it is not quite enough. And he does not get the nose under Malinowski. These great pictures from the back end of Fabian Piffitt's Lexus for the Team Forzilla Lexus 195. It's just not enough for Malinowski, and he's really got to make up this time. Here's the thing, though. He's only losing one position due to that 5-second penalty at the moment because Grady has dropped off so much.
Yeah, but I'll tell you one thing. If these three continue racing like they are, that's going to do nothing but help Cody Pride catch up. Pride, who will, if the gap stays the same, will finish 4th anyway. Could potentially get up there and threaten for a podium position. How brilliant would that be for Cody Pride's efforts today? And, well, meanwhile, back here for 14th place, the fight continues, but Boothby's off in Dunlop, gets it back on the track, but a lot of time and momentum lost. And here's how this happened.
Just got
a little...
So easy to do.
I've done that a million times. Yeah, you just get a little bit too wide, and the track continues to want you to go straight. And, well, you can't do that. So George Boothby back down to 16th, and a frustrating race 1 will continue here, I'm afraid, for the, well, apparently the expecting father, George Boothby. Mikael Sundstrom, though, fighting Martin Grady for the 6th place position. Bentley on Bentley here. Round the outside 130R, not a common move, but absolutely going a little bit too wide is Martin Grady, and it's very obvious to me that the arrow on the 418 Bentley not quite doing what it should. I think you were right on with your damage with that car, Mike.
Yeah, that left side damage is really going to cost you, especially through Sector 3 here at Suzuka, and it's what it is right there. You know, I mean, we saw Mikael Sundstrom just slide on past him, easy peasy. And you know, I mean, in the end, it's Grady is just he's just trying. It's not even a recovery drive per se. He's just trying to keep a hold of what he can. And if he can keep the hold of the back of Mikael Sundstrom, maybe he can make a pounce here in 10 minutes or so at the end of the race. He's got 10 seconds back on Thomas. So he's got plenty of breathing room to just relax, spend the next 13 minutes cruising around the track, waiting potentially for Mikael Sundstrom to make a mistake. I don't know if I've ever seen Mikael Sundstrom make a mistake, Jesse, and I say he'll do it, but you know, we talk about that a lot. Sundstrom is just he is of all people probably the most consistent driver that we see. Not the quickest, but he's the most consistent.
I'm going to give you a statistic here. I've asked a lot of these drivers completely sideways, by the way, was Kalat there. And still is, even in this picture, was still sideways. He was loose in Degner 1 and was still sideways exiting Degner 2.
Let's watch it again. From the onboard helmet cam.
Onboard helmet cam coming through Dunlop into Degner 1. He gets sideways here. He's already sideways.
Huh?
And he
didn't look like it from the inside of the car.
Okay, it definitely looked more dramatic from the outside cam. Perhaps it wasn't Kalat. Perhaps it was Pierre in the back there. Yeah, it was Giner. You have to excuse us. They're driving identical cars. It was Pierre Giner who did that. But I've asked a lot of drivers over the past year or two to solve CAPTCHAs or prove they're not a robot to me. Out of all the drivers that I've asked, Mikael Sundstrom is the only one that refused to participate. Coincidence?
I don't think so, Jesse Lee. I think you are correct.
I think it's a robot,
That
yeah.
is not a coincidence. Here is the train currently being led by Matthias Wass, the Intruder Racing Team 222. That is Dorsch, Soans, and Boothby out behind. Of course, Boothby had a bit of an off after he had made up a few positions after having an initial off, and is all the way back in P16, which is the last place that Boothby wants to see. He needs to see a P10 next to his name or better. I think I'm very curious to see what the points are going to look like. I'll see if I can do them real quick between the sessions, Jesse, and see what the points are looking like as we do our weight into race number 2. But I think that Boothby is now he's going to have to get on it. If he has, if his race 2 is like his race 1, he's going to have to show up at Spa next week and put in a race. And that's not what he wanted to do this week. Here's Malinowski. He has dropped back a little bit off of Joe McCauley, but Cody Pride all over the back of him. He already knows he's got the position on Malinowski, but he doesn't care about him. He's looking at that Lamborghini out ahead of Malinowski at this point and says, Pasta, get out of my way. I want a podium. And Pride's got it in him. He's had so much pace here through the back half of this race. McCauley up ahead has had nothing for Piffett, though. That's it. He's looking at the outside there a little bit, but Piffett got it a bit of a defense. Well, I lied. Maybe Joe does have a little something left in the tank.
Never count out Joe McCauley. And look at this, right on the back of Fabian Piffett, shading towards the inside of turn 1 is Piffett, showing the intent to be defensive, and indeed does. The wide line for Joe McCauley, hoping to get a launch out of the second part of what they call turn 1. It looks like it's going to be that exactly, but the S's is going to be a right turn. Is it going to be position gain for Joe McCauley? It is, and 2nd through 5th place are all together now in the S's. Patience pays dividends. 30 minutes of patience for Joe McCauley has given him 2nd place. Meanwhile, Piffett now is having to defend Malinowski and Pride behind them as Joe McCauley sets their eyes forward. Oh, yes, side by side in the background, and Pasta getting around.
Well, it's keeping the position, rather. That was Cody Pride going for the overtake and is not able to get it done by great racing through the Degners. It is not easy to go side by side there. It's very smart driving, and he's still behind coming out of the hairpin.
By the way, folks at home, as you might expect, I have been doing the maths. My rough estimate here is that George Boothby is going to lose anywhere from 32 to 40 points of his championship lead. That's about 40% of his lead, Mike Jones, in this one race.
Oof. That is a lot. So he's got Piffett. So the question is, how much did that just cost Piffett to lose that spot to McCauley? Because that is, let's see, for this race in particular, that is only a 2.5 point difference. So it's not significant, but if it happens again next race.
Yes. So now with Piffett losing a position and Boothby gaining a couple, it's only about a 28-point loss, but still that's about 25% of his lead as Cody Pride and Malinowski continuing to go for it. Cody Pride looking down the inside, fakes all the way back to the outside of turn 1, trying anything to get around that car. Malinowski has a 5-second penalty in the overall. He's going to lose this position anyway, but they are allowed to race, and they're going to be 3 wide into the triangle. That's not going to work as George Boothby's trying to get around several of the cars around him. It looks like he is going to do it as Dorsch may get swamped here by Jordan Sones. And I think that is what's going to happen into turn 1. But George Boothby gaining more places. That's less points he is losing now. About 25 points the gap now that he's losing, of course.
I'm a little concerned that Boothby may get a penalty for that. I was just looking back at it, and he absolutely sent it 3 wide down to the Castillo Triangle and caused contact. So we'll see if he ends up with perhaps a 5-second penalty or something for that. No spins, luckily, so it won't cost him too much, but he's really going to have to put the hammer down now and try and gap these guys in case he does get a penalty so he can pick up as many points as possible for the race. As you said, Jesse, he's losing quite a bit of his championship lead at the moment, and that's the last thing that he needs is to get a penalty and lose even more. Up into P12 for the moment. We'll see how that shakes out here pretty soon, as Mr. Boswell has just made his way back in here for a moment, Jesse, and is handing you all sorts of slips of paper.
Yeah, he is, and some of the earlier incidents have had judgment passed. 15-second penalty for car number 3 for taking out car 114 into turn 1 on the 7th lap, and a 5-second penalty for the 193 for an aggressive overtake on the number 19 without the position being returned on lap 9. And I'm gonna have to take an extra breath for this one, Jake. Warning for car 114, minor contact between car themselves and car 193. Chief Stewart says multiple contacts during race so far with the same driver. Second warning upped to a 5-second penalty. So that's how that shook out. And I've just, Jake handed me another one here. 5-second penalty for car 41.
Yep, there it is.
Takeout, but position returned. The 41 took out
that was lap 11.
93 on lap 11, yes.
Ooh, hang on a second. So that was not the one we just saw. Also, Father Boothby, or Grandfather Boothby, upcoming, is also saying that, yeah, that might be a penalty for that dive as well. I'm going to go back and take a look at that one. I don't remember where he took somebody out, so I'm going to go take a look, Jesse Lee. Let's see.
Yeah, you go ahead. We're going to watch the 992 here, and Boothby. This was a little bit of a contact. This was a previous overtake.
That
and
was
there it
not
is.
The 5-second penalty for that one at least, but this is the 193.
This one then.
Yeah, there it is. Oh, that was that one going into the hairpin or the Casio triangle. Sorry. Yep.
And that. Oh yes, indeed. There it is. That is. George Boothby realized
that seems fair.
What had happened there. Yeah. I mean, but George didn't mean to do that, obviously.
No,
he stopped. He realized that, missed the corner there a little bit and got in there. Well, the right side of the board looks like it has chicken pox.
Oh, yeah. So here's a replay for the recent dive.
Yeah.
Oh. Desperate dive.
Father Boothby says disgusting. I don't know. Look, you're going for it. All right, like you do the time for the crime, but I don't know if I necessarily blame anybody. I mean, you're going 3 wide of the triangle. Probably not smart, but I'd probably do it too. Because if it works, you look like a hero.
Well, a hero Boothby is looking like at the moment. He has made up all those positions. He's dropping back about probably about 4 positions off that 5-second penalty. We'll see if he gets a second one. Here's Matthias Waz. He's went around. Looks like 130R things. I think the mirror was a bit of a glitch, but
what happened in the mirror did not happen, but him touching the curb in 130R and getting loose in a Porsche absolutely happened.
Yeah, so that's just an issue of 130R. I mean, I said it earlier, Jesse. We were going to see plenty of replays from 130R today. We haven't seen as many as I was expecting. So these guys are doing good.
We've seen three wides into the triangle, which I didn't expect.
True.
That's the big surprise for me. 2 minutes 40 left in the race. Massoud leading. By the way, Joe McCauley, that gap was 4 seconds. It's down to 3.3. I've been doing the math, and there's not enough time for McCauley to catch up unless Massoud really starts to lose time here. But keep an eye on that. That could come into play in race 2. Fabian Piffet in the 3rd spot. Malinowski still leads Cody Pride. And back here, Colton Geiner still nose to tail. And let's see here. Oh, was this? Oh,
I think there was earlier contact, maybe.
Maybe that, maybe a little multi-21 action.
Let's see. That's Collett and Geiner, right? So,
yeah.
Well, you know what? Geiner isn't fighting at all for points. Well, I mean, Collett is, but the other his people that he's fighting with other than Thomas aren't really here. So I don't know if team orders would have come into play with that or not. Maybe just some earlier contact and realize that maybe he was just going to let his teammate by.
Do you think? By the way, do you think Cody Pride will be sending Malinowski a Christmas card this year after holding him up like this?
I mean, here's the thing: he's a fellow Porsche driver, so he may still like him. Porsche drivers tend to stick together. Stewie,
our broadcaster Stewie, our broadcaster Stewie, also a Porsche driver, confirming that yes, it's like a weird fan club, isn't it? Pierre Geiner has brought the number 7 to the pit lane. A drive-through penalty, by the way, awarded to Geiner.
5 seconds again for Mr. Boothby.
Yes, potentially speeding into the pit lane was Geiner there. Well, another 5-second penalty for the 41. Forceful overtake with contact on the 222 into the triangle. We saw that replay earlier. That was the 3 wide into that corner. So 10 seconds worth of penalties for George Boothby. And, well, all you can hope, Mike Jones, is that race 2 is a little bit better for you. I mean, all it takes is to have a good race 2, and none of this matters anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Is it's only half points per race. So they've got plenty to make up in the second race. In the end, the thing that matters is mostly from a sound here, right? He's got pole position for both races, so he gets full pole position points. He's got fastest lap in race 1 as he comes across the line and takes the victory. He's got fastest lap by about a 10.5. And he's taken the victory points off of the first race. Piffet obviously lost P2, and that's going to cost him in the end in the points versus Boothby. But Boothby here, he's going to drop down to P16 or 17. Just going to try and slide past one other guy here just to make him as much time as possible. He knows that he's fighting Waz for P16 at the moment, basically. So I'm curious to see what happens here as he crosses the line and see where he ends up, because that's a couple points difference. And realistically, that might be what we get down to, same as last season. If Piffet does really well next race and next week, we could have a couple points difference at the top of the leaderboard again by the time this is all over, Jesse.
We could. Well, I just got to give Massoud his dues here. Massoud, who qualified on pole, drove away on the initial start and held a very slim lead for the first half of the race, pulled away, and will eventually beat Joe McCauley, who won the battle for second. So for Massoud, after having only one podium on the entire season, it's going to be a win here today for the 100 Porsche. Joe McCauley, a brilliant second after a well-fought fight for that place. Fabian Piffet down to third will do nothing but help his championship host Malinowski in fourth place. Cody Pride rounds out the top 5, but will likely be promoted to the fourth place position. And here is H3 Racing's Massoud celebrating on his victory, first of the season for Massoud, and well done to him, the pole and the win. He had a fastest lap in a pole position prior to today, but he was not able to take it the entire distance. Well, he's certainly done that today. Celebrating in 130R and might be celebrating into the wall. Nope, just stops it there. Final finishing order: Sundstrom, Grady, Markvart, Thomas, Dornelis, Boothby, Rambach, Solms, Dorsch, Kalat, Wass, Geiner, Daldigny are the finishers of the race. And that's, of course, how they finished, not how it all shakes out with their penalties. Well, race 1, half points, and my best math tells me that with half points and Piffet losing second place, looks like George Boothby lost about 18 points in that race, which isn't the end of the world, but you wouldn't want to lose that many places or points at all. So certainly the championship closer today, or closer now than it did at the start of the day. What does George Boothby have to do to make sure race 2 is better for him? Mike Jones.
I mean, in the end, it's hard to say, right? Because I mean, it's just the simple fact of keep a hold of your car. It's really all Boothby did, right? He just made that mistake. And so, making that mistake is what cost him, and then subsequently trying to battle up through the field cost him the penalties and stuff. So, it's something that he's going to have to really, like, he needs to take a deep breath. We've got a little bit of a hold time in between sessions here, so he's going to need to take a deep breath over the next 10 minutes or so, prepare himself for the second race, and really make sure that he gets a good start and gets out ahead and keeps a hold of his car through the race. Pithit, on the other hand, needs to make sure that anytime that Boothby is around him, that he is actively fighting him and trying to force the mistakes out of Boothby like he made in the first race. So I'm really curious to see what's going to happen for race 2. Obviously, we've got a few minutes here before we'll hold over. I mean, do you have any final thoughts on the race, Jesse, before we take a quick break?
Well, again, other than giving credit to Massoud, he knows that he can win. If I was Massoud, I would be a little bit worried about McCauley for the next race. Clearly had the pace, but certainly with the starting spot faced an uphill battle. If McCauley gets a clean launch, to the wire. Well, my final thoughts was it was an incredibly physical race 1. And usually race 2 is a bit more quieter, but I'm not so sure today is going to fall into that trend. Well, we're going to just have to wait and find out.
We're going to wait and find out here in a few minutes, guys. We're going to go over to a bit of a Be Right Back screen here while the race number 2 gets set up and everybody gets back out on the grid. We'll be back in, I would imagine, probably a little less than 10 minutes. Go take a break, get some stretching going, get some more water, or, well, it's Friday night. Why don't you go, guys, all grab a beer or a glass of whiskey or whatever you're drinking and join us for 40 more minutes of racing.
Box. Don't listen to him. Don't listen to him. Or a juice box if you're not of drinking age.
Jesse Lee, I'm trying to get sponsored.
Yeah, but you can't. We'll talk about this off camera. Folks, we'll be right back. Get up, stretch. We're going to be right back with race 2 of the night, a 40-minute race coming up right after this break.
Well, everybody, we are back. Sorry about the long bit of a wait, but we are back in for Stu got a little surprised at me getting louder all of a sudden. I was
Oh,
talking in a little bit of a lower voice while we were on break,
yeah,
Jesse,
you
and
sure were. You lulled him into a false sense of security. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Friday GT3 World Championship. In between races here, and Mike Jones. Well, he spiked it, didn't he, Stewie, and scared him half to death. Well, Mike Jones, talk us through the championship standings after race 1 today.
yeah, I mean, so you're looking at them here, right? What you're not seeing is that there's obviously some half points here, but the this won't display it, but that is fine. So we've got the gap closed up a little bit between Boothby and Piffet, but since Piffet didn't, he didn't get fast lap, he didn't get pole position, and he lost out on that second place. It's just not enough to really bring him up to a point to fight for Boothby quite yet. So it's going to be like we had to say 15 minutes ago, Jesse. It's going to be a situation of Boothby is going to have another bad race in order for Piffet to really make a fight for next round. And I don't think he's going to have much of one, but we'll see. That said, Malinowski obviously still up in P3, and Grady dropped off a couple points off the back of Malinowski. He's going to hope to have a little bit of a better start, rather. And Jesse Lee, I am hearing, by the way, as we tick over to the race session, the grid is forming up. I'm hearing raindrops. That's maybe going to throw a bit of a mess into the remainder of the race. Mikhail Sundstrom made up quite a bit of positions, up at 182 points in P6. Great job by him, of course, in race 1. And, of course, Cody Pride in P9, 168 points. All these guys fighting for P5 near the top. They're only 15 to 20 points behind each other. And let's take a look at page 2, Stewie, before we get back over to the grid. If he can cue that one up for us, I want to see what the back half of the grid looks like, because I think this is really where the fights are as well, Jesse. Very different. Wow, that has changed drastically. So Macaulay has picked up about 10 positions just by the nature of the signouts and him having a very, very great finish. And Massoud, of course, all the way up with 164 points in P11. That puts him 1 point off the back of Yaroslav Honzik and 4 points off the back of Cody Pride.
And you know what?
By the way,
I think no matter what happens to Massoud here, as long as he gets points, I'm pretty sure he's going to be P8 or 7 after today. Pretty much no matter what really happens, as long as he doesn't, not score points. So he's going to go from where was Massoud, like 18th coming into today, and he's going to end up in the top 10.
Yeah, that's really what it is. And, it's such a good race by him, such a good job by him through the remainder of the championship. So that said, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what the points do kind of end up with after Suzuka, or after the second race of Suzuka, rather, because Massoud, you're right, Jesse, he's just made up so much off that first race. And if he can really get the repeat off of this one, he's going to make up so much more again. But let's take us back to live pictures as we are about ready to start the formation lap here for race number 2. You are watching the start of the grid here, and not a whole lot of raindrops on the camera there if in this particular angle, but I do promise there is rain for about the next 5 minutes or so. This is going to make one interesting start, because I think Jesse, these guys are going to be starting on slicks in the rain.
Yeah, if it's not going to rain for very long, you can't afford to spend 50 seconds on pit lane thereabouts. So you're just going to have to tough it out. It's going to be one of those classic, I call it a DTM start, by the way. Some of you may not know what I'm on about, but in the era that I started watching DTM, there was a lot of this where you would basically, in a high-performance DTM car with a lot of downforce, you would just sort of tough it out for a while if you knew the race was eventually going to go dry to save your time a pit delta later in the race. And it was slick, but it really didn't matter. And I think that's exactly what you're going to see here today.
Well, we saw the opposite thing at NERBS, if you remember.
Exactly, yes. I think you're going to see that where you're just going to tough it out here. And that is going to create a bit of chaos in and of itself. because the slicker conditions, even if it's the track's not wet, if it's greasy or you know, it is going to change things quite a bit. And well, we saw a lot of 3 wide here in race 1. I don't see why race 2 would be any different. Well, if you're Martin Grady, you know exactly what you have to do, and that's start off in the correct gear and hope your day goes better. Well, if you are Masoud, you want to have more of the same thing, and you definitely do not want to see Joe McCauley in behind you for this race. Everybody now will have a better idea of what they're looking for and what they have here in race 2. But race 2 can be a very different mistress indeed. I think we're going to see more of the same on the start. It's going to be land rush almost. But I think further into the race, George Boothby, by the way, popped into history for a second. He was running laps in the interim between races, just trying to get a rhythm down. That's how serious he is.
Yeah, and that's really what it was. And he was running low 2s as well, because I was there as well, actually keeping an ear on him, if not an eye. And you know, he was getting comfortable with it. Is really what I can say in the end. And the problem is I don't know. You say that you think these guys are going to be scrappy off the start, Jesse. I'm curious if they will, because like obviously I'm going to take Boothby's car for example, and as we kind of scrub past some of the cars here, they're on slicks. It's damp. They're really going to have to be careful. If we see them be as scrappy as they were through the middle of the race, they're going to regret it. And I think Boothby in particular is very much not going to struggle too much with other drivers at the start, because he knows that he can't, risk going back to the back of the field again. So it's going to be interesting. I actually think the opposite. I think they're going to be a little bit more careful for 2 laps.
Oh, you're going to give them all of 2 laps before they start getting at it. Well,
you see that? Like, they're still going to get at it, but I think it's going to get crazy after 2 laps.
Oh dear, as they go through Spoon, and you saw that gigantic, what looked like a parking lot there. That's where they do driving school instruction and skid pad training here. If you've never been to Suzuka, they do a lot of driver training and stuff like that, and that place in the inside there can be used for a skid pad and set up sort of like a obstacle course almost for driver training. It's very cool to see them use every bit of the landscape around here, even the insides of corners. Well, we saw some spins in 130R. We saw a lot of 3 wide going down into the triangle, and we saw a lot of ballsy overtakes into 1. I don't think this race is going to be any different, though. We differ on how we think they're going to take the start. I'm going to go with the tried and true. They're racing drivers. They're going to forget it's raining by the time the green flag comes down. And I don't know which one it actually is going to be, but Martin Grady, I think all eyes are going to be on him to make sure that he gets a better start here. Has to be in the right gear for everybody. Slick conditions, you don't want to spin the tires. Mike Jones, down to you.
Yeah, I think all eyes on Martin Grady at this point. He showed the strength in qualifying. He knows that he can have the pace to get up and fight with Masoud in the top end of this grid. Let's see what happens as we take the green flag. The drone camera going to go all the way down the front straight as we get to, they're going to cross the lights. There's the start line, and there it is, green flag. Masoud gets the run off the line. Grady, though, definitely a much better start than last race. He slots into P2. That's George Boothby and Piffett fighting side by side. Piffett going to take the inside line and get it done. Boothby going to fight back and lose a position to the Pride. There's Piffett. Piffett's off. Fabian Piffett loses traction coming out of the second corner. He's going to lose the traction, lose quite a bit of positions. That's down about 6 spots. Boothby, even though he had Pride up beside him, I think they both realized Fabian was going off. They needed to be careful, and they have been. However, Cody fighting back, as Jesse just said, as they come through into Dunlop. Cody Pride does slide it past. He's going super aggressive on lap 1. That is Cody Pride up a position, 2 positions early, in fact, and he's all the way up. Masoud has checked out at the top of the grid already. Here's Sones at the back. He's had another mistake, the 239 Audi, and there's the blue Bentleys. The blue Bentleys throwing rolling themselves into another. Giner and Colette. Let's catch a bit of a replay. Here's Giner up ahead. Colette gets loose, locks up the brakes, I think, coming in through Degner 2. You can see him. Oh, no, he gets punted. He gets
There was contact, too, between Colette.
I think that's the Bentley of Dornelis, if I'm not mistaken.
Is that Dornelis?
It is, yeah. So that was Dornelis that came into contact, sent him into the teammates. Both of his Bentley rivals taken out as Sundstrom is all the way up into P5 fighting with Malinowski.
Well, he's going to be wondering, by the way, those two Bentleys, why did my teammate take me out? They're going to have to go back to the replay and figure out exactly what happened. I don't think Dornelis did anything wrong there. I think the movement from one of the Bentleys is more to blame for that personally, but a scary moment there as contact. Meanwhile, look at George Boothby coming through the field, getting around. Cody Pride has gotten around Grady for second place, and George Boothby now past Grady for third place. It's all coming up. Cody Pride here. What does Pride have for Massoud, perhaps, as this could be a very different race indeed? As look at this, Cody Pride. Is this for the lead of the race?
It is.
It is Massoud.
Look at him go.
All the way around. What has gone wrong with Massoud's car? Almost like that Porsche has more than a flat 6 in it.
That was an absolute blast out of the corner from that Porsche. I don't think I've ever seen a Porsche move that fast out of a corner before. Here's a bit of a replay from Piffet, by the way. Let's see what happened. So he gets a little bit of the curb, so a little bit of a tap from Boothby behind, which taps him into Grady, and Pride taps him around. So just some checkup all the way down the line. 4 cars coming into contact. The stewards are they're going to spend a few minutes on that one, I'm sure, Jesse Lee, to really figure out what happened there. But Piffet is the big loser, down to P8, Boothby in P3. It is not what Piffet wanted to look at here at the top of the race. He knew that he needed the excellent run. He knew he needed to be up in the podium. He knew he needed Boothby at the back. That has not happened, and now Piffet has to worry about Malinowski possibly getting him in the points, as of course they were only 20 points separating the two of them, and Malinowski's all over the back of Grady.
Absolutely trying to get around him here. It's the it's David versus Goliath, a small Porsche and a big old Bentley racing each other for 4th place. Martin Grady had a decent start, but seems to be having the same problem as race 1, falling back a little bit. Meanwhile, Cody Pride, who I'm sure the steward's going to be interested to determine if Cody Pride was the one that caused that spin with Fabian Piffet, who, by the way, is down in 8th place in the 195. And Colott and Giner are still on the track after their crash into the Degners, into each other, of all things, as they're all trying to sort it back out here. Thomas trying to navigate the traffic, trying to give everybody room. Contact with Piffet there as Piffet takes over the 7th place spot. Next person in line is going to be Mikhail Sundstrom from Fabian Piffet. Clearly Piffet's car has the pace, and it's interesting to notice in this race there is no Joe McCauley, unless my eyes are broken. McCauley,
he had a technical issue.
Todd Liene got by Grady.
McCauley had a technical issue that did not allow him to reconnect back in. And you will see here on screen, by the way, that is a bright pink Porsche ahead.
Yes,
very briefly, we saw a bright yellow Bentley. So Malinowski making up the positions as well as Fabian.
Well, look at this as well, Mike. Look at the track. This helicopter cam shows you the state of the racetrack. It may be raining, but the track is greasy, and there is a dry line. That's not a drying line. That is a dry line. So the teams taking the dry tire was absolutely the right call here. And Mikhail Sundstrom now trying to get around Grady.
Yeah, Sundstrom, he's really wanting to push it here. He always had a pretty decent race last race, and Grady is, he had a good start. Better start than last race, but he's still, suffering at the moment. He's back down to P5, 2 seconds behind Malinowski, who has checked out after he passed Grady. And currently, Grady is holding up this entire pack of cars. I don't think Grady was ready and prepared for the track conditions. His car was probably set up for the super dry track conditions. That's what he wanted, and it is not doing him well so far. We'll see what he does over the next 10 minutes or so, if he can kind of get used to it, or if he's going to struggle with it. But there is Sundstrom sliding around him and Spoon, and we're going to see Piffet go for a move in 130R as well. Difficult spot to pass, and Piffet realizes that and goes ahead and backs out before the corner actually comes up. I did just check, by the way, Jesse Lee, just to make sure. Grady is indeed also on slicks, so he did not take wet tires on accident. He is on slicks. He's likely, if I had to guess, struggling with his tire pressures.
Yes, Mark Vart here and Rombach fighting, and Dow Digny now getting into the fight as well as the Porsches fight off the Ferrari. We have some questions. Mr. Boothby actually asking, is Cody Pride on wet tires? I highly doubt that.
No,
I would assume Cody Pride is on dry tires, and indeed he is. The 33 on dry tires. We think every car's on dry tires, but Mark Vart and Rambach are going to come to blows, and Rambach is going to go way off into the S's here. What happens here? Oh dear. Well, I wouldn't want to have to call that, and I'm very thankful I'm in this box and not the steward's box, because I'm not entirely sure what happened there. It just looked like they came together.
I just checked every single car on the grid, by the way. Jesse confirmed everybody is on dries. Looking at, because they're one of the ones I can see, Mr. Boothby out here ahead of Malinowski. Tires are absolutely freezing. He is about 1.5 to 2 pounds under pressured at the moment. And so he's definitely going to be struggling with grip, and that's kind of showing with how far back off he fell off the Sound. That's not what I would expect from Boothby. So these guys, they're still running slow lap times. That was a 205 to 207 on the last lap by, and of course these guys very much running in the low twos normally with the optimum conditions. So the grip levels are going to continue coming up, but with only 16 cars on the track after the full technical issues we had, the track's not going to come up very fast. I'm going to assume it's probably going to get up into maybe green here in about 10 minutes if I had to guess, and then they're going to suffer with that for the rest, which means that here at Suzuka, which is already a very low grip track, they're going to have to deal with even lower grip than they're used to in the dry here for into the next 30 minutes. Malinowski definitely faster than Boothby at this point. He's just looking for an opening.
Well, we're going to watch Malinowski here in the hunt, getting really up close and personal with the pink car there. For those of you that were with us last night, that's exactly what Mike Jones was doing to to me and Christian. But the race continuing, and the conventional wisdom, folks at home that may not know sort of the ACC meta, the conventional wisdom is if the track is at all wet or in transition, you typically want to be on the wet tire, simply because it gets hot, but it doesn't wear like you might expect it to on a dry racetrack. You want to wait as long as humanly possible for the times to equalize. We're not there yet. If we're running 2 minutes something laps, we have not got over to the point where dry tires are as efficient as they need to be. So everybody on the greasy tracks out there slipping and sliding, whereas if they were on wets, they probably would be doing the same, but also running the same, or actually probably about the same time. So dries have not come into their own. We're not into the 50s, the 1 minute 59s. And we expect to be there sometime in the next, I'd say about 10 minutes or so. So everybody's struggling on that. Some struggling more than others. Case in point, George Boothby getting absolutely hounded by Malinowski here.
Oh, there he goes.
Excellent battle. Malinowski going to the inside. He's going to overshoot the corner. George Boothby will say, thank you very much, and shift back in front at the end of Spoon. And, well, that was all for naught. And he has to do it again, does Malinowski?
Yeah, I mean, he's just maybe losing that little bit of grip. That he's obviously quicker than Boothby. We know that at the moment, but he's still losing that little bit of grip. And if you lose a little bit of grip trying to make a pass here, it is not going to go well. He's going to try it again here in the triangle, but Boothby's able to get on the brakes harder. But Boothby overshoots just a little bit. We know that that inside line can be very loose, and Boothby's struggling with tire pressures already. And there goes Malinowski. Just that little bit of looseness. I'm watching George from his in-car cam. A little bit of a seesaw as he's coming out of the corner, and that's just enough for that Porsche to slide on past. But that said, I almost wouldn't be surprised if Boothby... Oh, Mark Bart's out. We'll get to that here in a second, but I wouldn't be surprised, Jesse, if Boothby can eventually lock that back down. So Mark Bart just comes into contact with the Bentley. Again, that Bentley of
now that
Darnell
was
is
real
just
nice
struggling.
driving. Oh, I was just going to say that was real nice driving by the drivers behind, but several colliding into them. The two Porsches, though, of Dowdigny and Rambach, who got through there, that was excellent driving. That's exactly what you want to see, slowing down and getting around. But the cars even further back, not quite so lucky. As Massoud, by the way, as the track improves, is now running down Cody Pride, or has done run down Cody Pride. Can we confirm one more time that there is Pirelli lettering on the side of Cody Pride's tires?
So according to Daddy Pride, he's running wets. Stewie's going to check here because I was checking and I see Pirelli stickers. That must have been because I had to rejoin the server. So my checking the tires actually did no good in the end, because it
now
looks
those
like
are slicks on the
that
100.
Yeah, they are. So
but
Cody
those
Pride,
are wets on the 33.
Yep, Cody Pride's going to suffer. So Jesse, I might have to have you check through the grid, as
Okay.
I seem to have lied because I don't have, my server doesn't have the correct information. The drone cam going to chase these guys down the west straight. Massoud's going to back out knowing that he's faster than Cody Pride and not risk it in 130R. So that's probably the good spot there. He gets a little loose, and you can tell that Pride is starting to lose grip. He knows he can't make a tire stop. It would be insane. He's going to have to run 27 plus minutes on wet tires on a greasy to dry track, and that is not going to work for him. I'm looking over at Boothby, who of course has the dry tires on, we know as well, as Massoud's going to probably get it here into turn one. I wouldn't be surprised. Gets on the brakes. Cody's doing good on the brakes still, but Massoud holding it steady through second curve, and now he's going to have the inside for the S's, and that should just slot him right out ahead. My point about Boothby, by the way, Jesse Lee, his tire pressures are getting close to being in the optimum level, and his tires are no longer cold. So we are going to see those dry tires at this point confirmed that they are going to be much, much quicker. And that's also proven by the fact that, of course, the lap times have come down almost 3 seconds in 2 laps.
I would love to know why Pride put the wet tire, perhaps not thinking the track was going to change as quickly as it did. But I give Cody Pride a lot of credit there for trying something different, going against conventional wisdom. We do apologize. Sometimes the graphics sort of lie to us a little bit, and they did in that case. Our broadcaster's the only one that's seeing the tire choices as is, as there's going to be contact between teammates here again, I imagine. This will be the third time in 2 races. No, just an overtake.
Nope.
Just an overtake there, getting a little bit offline in Dunlop, and that's all it takes. You lose a little bit, you lose a lot around here, as Malinowski now has caught up to Cody Pride, as Massoud, of course, has reassumed the lead. Very defensive move to the inside is Cody Pride. Will that matter coming up to 130R? It's going to be a drag race into the corner. Going to have to go around the long way as Malinowski, and perhaps discretion the better part of valor for Pride, as Malinowski slots into the second place position. Those wet tires on Cody Pride's car were absolutely brilliant for the first 10 minutes, but now will be overheating and falling off a little bit as the track has went from greasy to green, and now would be the time in a normal race that you would think about putting on the dry tires. And again, give credit to Cody Pride. Going a bit differently, going off the track into one, but doing something differently as well, as George Boothby gets through for third place. We're going to see this from the helicopter cam. Drives down into one, loses it, no grip on those tread block tires. But Cody Pride did something different, trying to go against the conventional wisdom try to sneak one away. I can count all the times that has worked. It's worked an absolute treat for some drivers.
Well, if you look at Malinowski at that race where he was running deep on the wets, there, where it was so close. As Cody Pride getting loose again through the Dagners, he knows he's got the cars beneath him and he's struggling a little bit. Again, just bleeding positions as Pride. He's all the way back down to P6, but Piffet, great run by him so far, Jesse. He's up just behind Sundstrom, and they're gaining time against Boothby ahead. If I'm seeing my math right here, Cody Pride ran a 2:07 last lap, by the way. For comparison's sake, Mikael Sundstrom 2:02.5, George Boothby 2:03.3. That's 4 seconds.
Yes, indeed. That Lexus is positively flying now. It's loving this, and so is Fabian Piffet, Team Fordzilla Lexus, getting it done here, trying to stalk Mikael Sundstrom for a top 5. Will there be a move into 130R? Not the place that I would want to put my nose in front of somebody, and Piffet
especially
agrees.
in green track conditions.
Indeed. Piffet agrees and stays single file. Piffet can get a run out of one of these corners, and that's going to be just about all it takes to get alongside, and I think the Lexus will do most of the rest of the work. Massoud back out front, Malinowski and Boothby the top 3. Sundstrom and Piffet the top 5 as Cody Pride continues to fall, and that's exactly what I was talking about. Getting a run into a corner. Oh, it's going to be a light contact between the two of them. Excellent driving. Nobody twitching, nobody losing out, but it will be Fabian Piffet taking that position away from Mikael Sundstrom. Excellent driving by the two of them, and I don't think the stewards will mind that too much.
I don't think so either. That's Rubbins racing right there. A little bit of a tap. That's perfectly fine. That Lexus just showing its strength down the straight. It is so quick down the straight. We've proven that time and time again that it can beat the rest of it can run with the top end of the cars down the straight. And the Bentley, well, it definitely struggles just a little bit more than some of the other ones do. Here's Rombach in the 199. He's currently fighting with one of his Porsches, Downey out there in the 26. These guys fighting for the Porsches in the back of the grid. This is P9. Of course, Massoud has already, checked out. I'm curious to see, because obviously Malinowski gained a half second on Massoud last lap. So the question being, do we think Malinowski can catch up to Massoud and fight with him? Because so far, Boothby can't. Boothby is not showing as much pace, but I think he's just kind of chill at this point, is George Boothby. He knows that he's in a good spot. He's won the championship from where he's at. If he pushes, the mistake could come out again, and he could fall back down and finish in P14 in theory. Speaking of which, P14, Mr. Collot, is that a drive-through for track limits? I didn't see Jake come in.
Yeah, he hasn't come in, so either one thing has led to another, and that is a drive-through penalty for the lap 1 incident, and it hasn't been posted, or that is track limits, which would have been further exacerbated by the lap 1 incident. So one way or another, it is somewhat related, if you will. We'd like to take this time to thank you all for joining us as Martin Grady has come in. Now, why is that, do you wonder? Is Grady on the wet tires?
Let's check the tires.
No, those are dry tires. Oh, damage. Huge damage on Martin Grady's 418 Bentley.
Why don't you talk about something for a second, Jesse? I've got a replay to watch.
Yes, indeed. What I was going to say, ladies and gentlemen, is thank you for joining us on your Friday evening, and we do appreciate you being here with us at RCI TV. And if you have enjoyed tonight's race, why not leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell? We'll be back with you tomorrow for the GT3 Endurance World Championship finale, the 10-hour of Suzuka here. If you think 2 40-minute races here is action-packed, 10 hours is going to be off of the charts. We have a championship to hand out as Cody Pride goes off in the Degners there, struggling on those tires.
I'll give you one guess what happened to Grady.
130R something Bentley.
Pride with the rejoin. Yes, Jesse, you hit it right on the nose.
Yeah, I assume so. Bentleys do not like 130R for one reason or another. Well, join us tomorrow, like I was saying, for the 10-hour of Suzuka, the championship finale. 2 teams in it. Only one of them can win the championship, and they will be crowned tomorrow evening. Join us
Not
for
only
that.
that, but lots of fights going out throughout the championship as well. So while I'm excited to watch the
Indeed.
Racing Line and PCDC fight, the rest of the championship is also going to be fantastic. So I think it's going to be a good one.
And if you haven't got enough of me this week, and who wouldn't want to spend Saturday with me, I'm going to be there for pretty much the entire middle part of that race. So come hang out with me. Ryan Mawson's going to be there with me for a while. We're inevitably going to talk about pre-war era racing cars at some point. And I think I'll be there with Christian as well at some point. And
you're in with Mawson and Christian, and I think with Mr. Gill for an hour too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, me and Ryan Gill will talk about circuit architecture and how Herman Tilke ruined racing circuits, no doubt. Join the conversation. We love we love the chat interaction. As complete look at the save by Cody Pride. Cody Pride's going to tough out this race on those wet tires, and it won't be a lot of points, but look at this. Cody
having a blast.
Pride.
He's having a blast.
Cody Pride, there's going to be some women that you've just sent into a crisis after that. I imagine that was absolutely brilliant stuff. Fighting that car, but absolutely brilliant car control. Oh my goodness! Completely sideways in Dunlop again. Cody Pride, please. Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! He continues to fight the car through Dunlop, into the Degners, into the dirt, onto the curbs. Oh my goodness, Cody Pride, please pit for tires, please!
Oh man. I think Stewie's right. I was thinking the same thing. Jesse, I think he turned his TC off and he's just out having a drifting race.
Oh my goodness, it's brilliant to watch, but it's very scary. I think he actually
he's
might
doing it on
be.
purpose. He's pulling a Martin Schumacher. That's what he's doing right now. This is what we're going to see Martin Schumacher do during the practice session tomorrow for the 10 hours of Suzuka before the race. He's going to be out on wets on the dry track, drifting around, putting on a show. I'm curious. Oh, there he goes. Now he's off. All right.
Oh.
I'm
dear.
curious if his dad's still here. If he goes in and checks, I'm curious to see what happens.
Darren
Otherwise,
Pride.
I'm sure Cody will be in here in a minute.
Darren Pride, proud father of Cody Pride, and now he's doing it on purpose. But like I was saying, we'd be remiss if we did not mention our fantastic partners. We thank all of them for everything that they do for us, helping bring you all of the races we do. Race Department, AK Informatica, Raceface Speed Lab, Sim Racing, GP, and of course we have brand new ones coming in. I'm not sure how many of them I'm allowed to name at this point, but of course we know Driver 61 that we've been talking about for quite some time, and quite to the relief of my own heart, Cody Pride has come down the pit lane to put something other than a wet tire on that car, but it was absolutely brilliant to watch. By the way, Malinowski has not let Massoud go anywhere.
No, but Massoud has caught up to him. He was a few seconds back, but we know that Malinowski, based on the lap times here, has the pace. So realistically, I think Massoud's a sit and duck. He didn't make any mistakes last race, so he's got the consistency down. The problem is, at the moment, he's a little consistently slower than the Malinowski behind him. Malinowski really showing the strength. And I think this is a point that you brought up early on in the practice session, Jesse. Changeable conditions. Porsche's good. Malinowski is even better. And that's what he's showing.
Well, I can tell you this. My first interaction with Malinowski was about 4 or 5 years ago at this point, and we were doing tandem drifts together at that point. So I'm not saying that he is going to be doing that. It's Fabian Piffet gaining a position here potentially.
That was the earlier one.
This is the replay earlier of the pass on Mikhail Sundstrom there. But yeah, that was my first interaction with Malinowski. I didn't know who Malinowski was. I just knew him by Tortellini, and we were doing drifts on the same drift track. So he definitely can wheel the car. Doesn't have to be traction. So I think that's sort of how you drive the Porsche anyway, is my point that I'm getting at.
Yeah. Well, you're not wrong.
Which explains why I can't drive it to save my life. But either way, my follow-up point to that, Mike Jones, is, well, Massoud doesn't really need to let him go by. I think we're about to see how wide you can make a Porsche here in the final 13 minutes.
Oh, yeah, he's not going to let him by, definitely. Because in the end, obviously, Massoud, we saw him in the points, right? He came up a lot of positions. So he was in, let's see. Yeah, so he was in 11th at the start of the race, 4 points back behind Cody Pride. Well, as we know, Cody Pride just had to retire and forfeit his points for the race. That means that Massoud is at the very least jumped up to about P7, if not a little bit higher in the points. And so he wants to get every single point that he can, because he might be able to fight for a top 5 in the championship. And Malinowski, of course, is only 20 points back off of Piffet, so he's desperate at this point. He's going to give it a run here. We saw this earlier with the 2 Porsches. It was Cody Pride on the wets that time. We at least know why that one went so well at that point. Is Malinowski able to outbrake Massoud? He is. There he is. Does he overrun? He doesn't. A beautiful row. Oh! He gets loose as he comes into the second quarter. Gets bumped off. Massoud is going to send him wide, and they're going to rejoin the track. Gives plenty of room for the rejoin. Side by side through the S's. Here they come. Through the last one, out in the Dunlop. They're going to do the right-hander and then into Dunlop, and that is not going to be Malinowski's day. Massoud bounces him off track, gets the rejoin in, plenty of room left after the tap, and falls back out behind the 100 car. Does Malinowski for the moment. 12 minutes remaining, Jesse. He didn't make it quite wide enough that time, but still stuck it to the bottom. However,
by the way,
I see a McLaren.
Yeah, and I also see Alexis back there too. One more lap like that, and it's going to be a 4-way fight for the lead of the race. And look at George Boothby. The pressure's coming up in Boothby's car, and Piffet getting towed along by these two racing each other very hard. This podium may not end the same way it appears right now. Meanwhile, I have had some penalties come in, and very simply, a warning for car 992 for aggressive overtake with conceded position on the 41, and a 15-second penalty for number 3 for taking out the 24 on lap 5. And Jake is still writing something, and there it is. A drive-through for car 24 for an unsafe rejoin that causes contact with multiple cars.
There's what that drive-through was for earlier.
Yes, indeed. They have left. So 24 made contact with the 239 and the 193. We saw that in the triangle earlier, and that is what the drive-through was for. But that car has since retired.
Yeah, Cody did make his pit stop, by the way, so he is back out on the track. I thought maybe he had retired, but he hasn't. So he took his pit stop, got himself a stop-go 30 for speeding, but he is back out on the track to make sure that he gets some points, which is the smart move. He's still fighting for points.
That's the 5-head move right there.
Yeah, he's still fighting for points, and P14 is better than 0 points, as it turns out. We get points all the way back to P30, and obviously there's not even 30 cars left on the grid, sadly enough. So, Cody's got plenty of points to get, and he, is going to make sure that he's getting some of them at least. Massoud still will be ahead of him by a fair chunk, even finishing in P4 versus P14, even if he falls back all the way. But that said, that puts him in a good position for Spa to potentially overtake Massoud again. I actually don't know. Stewie, I'm sure, is going to answer this question in about 1.7 seconds. How is, Stewie, the Porsche at Spa? As I understand it, is not its best track, right? So that's basically what I expected Stewie to say. He says very, very fast in qualifying. It can hot lap at Spa very well, but since you lose so much in a straight line, it is very difficult to pass out in the corners. So,
yeah, the word he
basically-
used, folks at home, was annoying. by the way,
Annoying,
is what,
yeah.
Stewie called it.
Yeah.
That's what I was laughing at.
That said, Cody did put this in the chat a couple minutes ago, and Darren just reminded me. At this point, Cody is going to start pitting every couple laps for the rest of the race, I think. He's going to go out and do a few laps and then come back in.
He's trying to
pit
get
again,
fast
maybe.
lap.
He wants to get the fastest lap so he can get a little bit of points. So we'll see. He's currently well, not even near it at the moment. Oh! Uh-oh! Is that for the contact that just happened? Lap 14, turn 5. That was last lap. So actually, the head steward team has decided that contact from Masoud was a problem, and forcing Malinowski off track there, worth a 5-second penalty. Masoud gets the penalty, lets these guys by, realizing there's no point in fighting with them anymore. He's going to have to serve that penalty, but that is that's unfortunate for him. I don't know that I agree with that, Jesse. I probably would have went with a bit of a warning there, just because Masoud did kind of slot. Well, I don't know. He didn't slot Malinowski back out, back in front of him. Come to think of it, Masoud was still ahead. So you know what? No, I actually agree with it. I think a 5-second penalty is worth it there.
Yeah, I mean, you can call it any way, right? One of them got loose, and then there was contact, but you have to know there's a car there, and then they were side by side. You could call it either way. It's one of those tough calls, and I was going to mention that earlier, that I'm glad that I didn't have to deal with that one, because I don't know what I would have likely erred on. And of course, they have all the different angles, and they have all the different technical aspects of the car. They know what each car's doing, so we don't have that luxury here. So clearly they felt that the force off the track was negligent in some way, and the position, of course, was not necessarily returned. So by RCI rulebook, yeah, that makes sense that was at least a 5-second penalty, but that is unfortunate for Masoud. It was all going their way up until that point, and what that has done is slot them into 4th place. Actually, yeah, 4th place is Masoud, even though they run 3rd, because look at Fabian Piffet, who has caught all the way up here, 4 cars all in a line. Malinowski to the lead, George Boothby second, very close behind. It may not be 2 Porsches fighting for the lead, but it is still a fight for the lead. This changing track conditions has constantly shifted the flow of this race, and now all of a sudden, George Boothby, who was hemorrhaging time at the start of this race with cold tire pressures on those slicks, is now finally coming good here at the end of the race. Well, it's almost like George Boothby's a smart man and planned it that way.
Yeah, I think so as well. Boothby's he's a little bit slower than a couple of the other cars, but again, he's just kind of being patient, chilled out, and making sure that he's getting a good position. He doesn't need to make that mistake like he did, and that's really what's doing it. By the way, Cody Pride easily just took the fastest lap on his last lap. So he's got those points for the race, assuming nothing happens in the next 6 minutes where somebody else gets the fastest lap. But he is over a second ahead of just barely over a second ahead of Fabian Piffet, who is the next fastest lap on the track. So that means that Cody just took fastest lap from his rival, which is Piffet, potentially. It also means that Piffet loses points to Boothby and Malinowski. So much in play here, Jesse. Little points, 2 points, 3 points, 4 points here, and that is really what's going to make the difference here at the end of the championship. Boothby's got it locked at this point. Assuming he's there, he's done. He doesn't even need to make it to Spa to win. But Piffet, Malinowski, and Grady and Pride, it's going to be a race next week.
It is. I got to love that by Pride, though, realizing that, the strategy didn't work out, but I can still gain points here. I'm going to start calling him Cody Five-Head Pride for that strategy. I certainly wouldn't have thought of that myself, but get you some extra points, young man. As Malinowski continues to lead Boothby. Boothby, who, when I stopped by his stream, he said, I just want a good finish. And I think we can all sympathize with that. After having a bad race, all you want to do is go back out there, prove to yourself that I can do this and get a good result. And second place is a good result. But Mike Jones, it's better than second place.
That's exactly what I was just going to say.
Yep.
He's smelling it now. He's smelling the blood in the water, and that blood happens to be attached to some... Grady! Grady's off Grady. Again. Oh, poor Grady.
Oh, dear.
130R Bentley things again. Watch this. He's going to hit the right side. Oh, didn't even hit the right side curb. This time it was the left side that claimed him. Not usually what we see.
Oh, dear.
But yeah, Boothby's smelling dinner.
And it's pasta.
Jesse? Yeah, I was gonna say, man, some pasta really does sound good about right now too. Like, that sounds fantastic. Drive through for Massoud as we get back to live pictures here.
That has to be track limits.
It has to be, because I don't have a report from Mr. Boswell. He did not come in.
Nope.
And I didn't catch it on the flash up that comes up on the screen. So man, that's rough. That's very rough for Massoud. He has probably forfeited his chance at getting up into the top 5 for the championship. He had a chance. I don't think he does now. Him and Cody Pratt are going to probably be fighting for the bottom of the barrel in P7.
Well, the 5-second penalty was a big deal, and that now no longer a big deal, as Massoud does come down pit road to serve the drive-through penalty. The steward's decision matters not now. The track limits awarded by ACC has determined that he's went over the line one too many times, and a drive-through issued by the sim. Meanwhile, the fight for P1 still very much in play, and I just get the feeling that George Boothby is just sort of pacing Malinowski, waiting for a weakness. George Boothby would love for Malinowski to make a ever so slight mistake so that he could slip by and he doesn't have to force it in there. After race 1, I'm not even sure if Boothby would do such a thing, considering how terrible race 1 turned out for him, but he just wanted a good finish. But I can't imagine, with being so close, that he is going to just allow a potential win slip away. Meanwhile, Fabian Piffet very much still in the background here. If anything were to happen between the 992 and the 41, the 195 of Piffet would be the huge beneficiary in that. Well, what does Massoud's penalty do? Well, that obviously bumps Piffet up to 3rd, but it bumps Sundstrom up to 4th, and Thomas in the 42 Aston inside the top 5.
Something I just realized, Jesse. Cody Pride, as he's going in and out of the pit lane, needs to be very careful that he doesn't fall under the 93% rule and not get any points for the race because he doesn't do enough laps.
Oh dear.
He might be there at this point. He keeps pitting and wasting time. I don't know. We'll have to see how Tom decides to do those points. But if he's not careful, one to go. But if he's not careful, that may have cost him some points there. We'll see what happens. He did technically finish the race, but kind of. And so that's a bit of an issue for race control and the administration to bring up, realistically.
By the way, I love this comment in chat by King in reference to Grady spinning in 130R several
130F.
times. He's renamed it to 130F. I think I'm going to use that for the 10-hour, King, just so you know. I like that. 130R turns into 130F whenever you spin in it. Usually you have to clip the curb to spin there, but if you're running low downforce, you can spin the car without clipping the curb. Half a lap to go coming through the Degners now. What can George Boothby do? Can Fabian Piffet take second place, as it is all to play for here?
Well, the race session ended early.
Well, the race session has technically ended, but they are going to continue to race back to the line. A sort of glitch in the system, if you will, but everybody continuing to drive. Mike Jones, perhaps tell them that they need to continue.
They're still going. Ain't nobody stopped.
There is Massoud, who has stopped.
Yeah, we're seeing some connection lag.
Well, this the race for what will be the win. Looks like Malinowski is going to take it without a contest. Malinowski looking at his third race win of the season. It's been an up and down road for the man they call Tortellini, but a third win in the GT World Championship comes today. The right choice and the right speed is going to see him win, and it's very close between Boothby and Piffet. Piffet pulled out at the last possible second, but it's going to be Boothby second, Piffet third. Mikhail Sundstrom, who will come home a fourth place finisher. And what about Romain Thomas for Valkyrie Esports in fifth place? A top five for him. Daldigny sixth, Rambach seventh, Solms eighth, Dorsch ninth, and Giner the top 10. Behind them, Massoud, Grady, Kalat, and Pride will be your final finishers of the race. What an interesting affair that was. Several different battles for the lead, all among different drivers there at the end. What a little bit of rain and everything goes crazy. Meanwhile, by the way, Massoud's still sitting there. I'm unsure exactly why that is, but the final finishers coming across the line now. Ooh, spirited couple of 40-minute races there. And by the way, unofficial results, it's looking like George Boothby is champion-elect, Mike.
Yeah, I don't think there will be anything that will compete for that at this point. Boothby should have that locked in. We'll have Piffet, of course, come across in third for that second race as well. So really curious to see what happens with the points for there. However, what I do see is very quickly before we end the stream, Jesse, let's say we talk to some pesto. Not my favorite type of pasta, but in the end, pasta is pasta. So if I get Stewie to switch over to Discord really quick.
I'm already here.
There he is. All right, Jesse. So, Mr. Pesto Pasta, I don't know, what is your name today?
Today?
He's Torts, man. That's Tortellini. That's Torts.
I don't know. I don't think it's time for a special name today. No, just me. Just me.
Hell of a drive through the middle of the race, man.
Oh, that was such an enjoyable race. Like, one of the most enjoyable race and driving experience in ACC I recently had. Seriously. Just peak ACC this weather conditions. That was just amazing. I don't know why, but in those particular conditions, whereas wet tires are just slightly grained, grained from the wet, and the track is still slippery and green. It feels so good and realistic rev. I don't know why, but they just feel great. And the race was just amazing. Cody was on wets. That was interesting strategy. I don't know what pressures people went with, because there were two approaches: go high pressures, have good slicks at the start, and then they will die, or aim for pressures for the later part of the race, but struggle at the beginning. And I actually went for a middle ground, so maybe that enabled me to push at the beginning, and I was comfortable with the car. And then on the second part, I was struggling maybe just a bit at the end. The tires were done because I was pushing like hell at the beginning. And it just worked out. We had a nice battle and a scrap with Massoud. Unfortunately, I made a mistake. He pushed me right. I kind of understand that. Maybe he wasn't expecting me to still be there. Maybe he was thinking that he would slot ahead of me. It happens. He got the penalty for that. I got the penalty last race. I'd say that's fair enough. Yeah, it's just a great race.
Well, Torch, your third win here in the GT World Championship. You've come a long way from disconnecting every 5 minutes. What does that do for your confidence? You've got to be confident now.
I'm not, because in the first race my ping went to like 1000, and like because it was 1000, my car on the server was like moved by that like 1 second ahead or behind or something like that. So it was weird. I don't know why it peaks something like that, but it certainly doesn't disconnect anymore. And now I can even comfortably make small streams so people can maybe watch if they want. And it's just, like you said, more comfortable. I don't have to have in the back of my head that, oh, it's going to disconnect. And every time I was seeing my ping bar going high, it was just in the back of your head. It's like, oh no, it's going to happen again. And and you can't focus. And on the level we're driving, you just have to be constantly on it. So yeah, it's certainly a nice thing that I don't need to worry about that, and I just don't even have that in the back of my head now. I can fully focus on racing and enjoy it fully, which I certainly did today.
Well, there you have it. The man they call Tortellini, Malinowski, a third win on the season, further proving he is one of the drivers to beat. Congratulations, Torts, on another win. Well, folks, we are all done for the day, but the GT World Championship ends next weekend, or excuse me, next Friday night. Join me and Mike Jones and Stewie for the final race, a 75-minute finale where we will likely crown George Boothby the champion, but there are many points positions up for grabs inside the top 5, outside the top 5, top 10s. It's all going to be decided in 1 week's time. But if you have enjoyed today's broadcast, why not like, subscribe, hit the bell. We're going to be back with you, all of us, in fact. We'll be back with you tomorrow for the 10-hour of Suzuka, the championship finale for the GT Endurance World Championship. Several teams fighting for the top spot, yet to be decided, and more points paid throughout the entire race could make the entire top 10 for the team championship very spicy indeed. Make sure you are subscribed for that. And once again, thank you to all of our partners here at RCI that help us put on this race and every race. And a big special thank you to everyone at home that spends a little bit of your Friday night watching us. We very much appreciate you in chat and on stream. And well, that's just about it. We will see you tomorrow for the 10-hour at Suzuka at the same track. We hope to see you there. Until then, have a good night.